Hey everybody, Jonathan Fields here with a buddy of mine, Julien Smith, and we are going to recap, we're revisiting an experience from earlier in 2011 that apparently set in motion all sorts of things which I certainly didn't expect, and I don't know if Julien expected, but Julien, hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So, take us back, because what happened between us? We were basically doing this, having this really interesting video conversation earlier this year on Skype, and there was a moment that where something happened and it inspired something in you.
You don't even. I mean, you remember it now that we talked about it before on camera, but at the time, I think it wasn't like that, maybe that much of a big deal. And then I thought about it. I was like, hold on. I wish we could play the clip right now, but if we can't do that, I'll instead. So we're talking about this whole idea of swearing on the blog or swearing in general, and whether or not it impacts your brand, because it's always been a thing that's sort of I've been really comfortable with, maybe too comfortable with, and so I watched Jonathan. And this was maybe the first conversation that you and I really had that was quite long and it was like really good and all these things. And at one point I watch you do it. I watch you like almost swear and then, and I watch you, like I watch the resistance, like the wall, and I watch you push past the wall, and then I call you out on it in the interview. And I thought about that moment and I was like, after I saw that moment the first time with you, Jonathan, I couldn't stop seeing it every single place that I went. So right after, in a couple months later, I went to Spain, and I walked 500 miles into Spain over a period of 35 days. And so this idea of like constant like exposure to like long, arduous walking and all these things. And then most recently, like I was doing an interview as well with Leo from Zen Habits, and he just finished what he calls the Go Ruck Challenge. Mm-hmm. Which is this massive, I don't know, it must be like 24 hours or something obscene, where he calls it the suck. And he goes, you have to fight through this pain or whatever, fight through the part that sucks. And I ended up naming that moment, which I first saw with you, I ended up naming it the Flinch. Mm-hmm. And once I named it that, once I had found out, because I don't work at a boxing gym, I work out at a boxing gym, and I watch people fight all the time, almost like every day when I go in there, and I watch the best boxers, and I watch them not flinch in the face of pain, and I realized that this is like an essential, really clear thing for me that I've been working on for a really long time, this idea of pain and the ability to fight through it, and how do you really learn to do that? Because at the end, everybody knows how to do anything they want to do. They can Google, how to lose weight. They can learn how to swim properly. They can, talk with Chris Gilbo and, travel to 100 countries around the world or whatever. But that is not the actual challenge at all. The actual challenge is breaking through the internal instinct to keep to safety, and that is like almost like a biological reaction that is no longer appropriate for our environment. Right. So I called it the Flinch because that's what it is, and from that point on, it turned into a book that we're releasing on the 7th of December, whatever day this ends up being published, probably around then, and it consumed me. And it briefly consumed Seth Godin for a little while him and I worked back and forth on it. Without him, it would never have existed. But now it's turning into this thing that I see everywhere I go, and it's almost like I see it as the central moment at which people decide either to go ahead and pursue, I don't know, their dreams or something, or they resist and they come back, they flinch, and then they return to what they had before.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit more about what it is, but I'm curious also, you and I have had a lot of conversations about, where the publishing industry is heading in general. Why a book? I mean, so you get this like bolt of lightning. You're like, this is a concept. I need to explore it. I need to talk about it. I need to share it with the world. You're a New York Times bestselling author already. You've got that, on your resume. Check. Why a book?
It's a great question. I think that that people view a book as an artifact. This one, I have the luxury of being able to like, you know, earning money with this book is not at all what we wanted. So we talked about it, me and Seth, for like a while, and as to try to decide what it is we wanted to do. And the ideal solution to me was to try and release it for free for as many people as possible. So in the actual book, which was quite short, it's just an examination of how the Flinch works. And I talked with security experts, and I talked with self-defense professionals, and I talked with like many other people that examine fear in a bunch of different ways, physical, psychological, etc. And I realized that I could just encapsulate it with this artifact. Like, you need either something that people will treasure and download as a thing, or you need some kind of physical object that represents it in a really good way. So it's, I don't know why, but in the mind of the readership, like, having it be available on Amazon is like makes me maybe an authority or something, whereas releasing it as a blog post means it's like whatever. So it's really just a psychological distinction, and it's disappearing over time, actually.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So what's interesting too is that this started as something where I'm sure, like, we've had so many conversations about similar topics. You've got a lot of stuff in your head around this topic and around like variations and around ideas sort of surrounding it. But this wasn't just a brain dump from you. It sounds like you went out and actually said, okay, who are the people that deal with this, that sort of from internally from the inside out, and then and that see it and can identify it and respond to it from the outside in, and how do I bring them into what I'm creating here? Well,
yeah, a little bit, because I mean, you kind of did the same thing with uncertainty a little bit. It's with me, like, the moment came when I was I was exposing this idea, and the process for anyone who hasn't gone through it that's listening to this is this idea of, oh, you know, I think I might have something here, but what you're looking at, it's like the elephant, the old man holding the elephant in the dark, trying to figure out what it is, and you don't quite know, and then you have to sort of expose it from different directions and try to figure out what it is that it really is and find the core of the idea. And if there's one thing that I learned from Godin, it's really to be able to expose that idea in the clearest possible manner, because he's such a master at that. So, and I was going through the book, and Chris was early on involved. Chris Brogan, who is my co-author with Trust Agents and is our co-author for the next book that we're coming out with Portfolio, was early on involved in the idea. But it became very clear that, like, this was the thing that I was, like, starting to devote my whole fucking life to this thing, pardon the language, I think, or something. So it really quickly was like this is, like, maybe, like, the big thing that I'm going to work on. So I talked to the head of the top security company in America that protects 7 out of the top 10 most at-risk individuals, including celebrities, pop stars, and it's the name of the guy who started the company is Gavin de Becker, who wrote The Gift of Fear, a very famous book. And then I spoke to other people. There's a guy who's a specialist in the startle flinch reflex and uses it for self-defense purposes, how to retrain the flinch in order to be able to use it to protect yourself instead of just shrinking back and and like ending up on the ground or something when you're being attacked. So, and then examining it from psychological angles and all these things, and you just realize that what you end up, you know, Rob Wolf, who's like you know him from the paleo movement, and I know him from there too, talks about us being in a toxic food environment. Well, I'm starting to believe that we live in a toxic decision environment, an environment where decisions are constantly being subverted. The hard things that we want to do and that we consider important, our entire environment and even our bodies themselves are not wanting us to do it, because we are programmed almost from birth to make safe decisions based on a dangerous environment, which is no longer really the reality. Our environment is no longer dangerous, so our flinch reflex is useless.
Yeah, no, and it makes a lot of sense. I completely agree with you. You know, something that was hardwired into us, which probably was really good, you know, a long time ago, and kept us alive and kept us in the tribe. Stopped us from doing so much now. So, I mean, so you decide this thing has to be a book. You decide it's bigger than just what's coming out of your head. You need to talk to some people who deal with this in different ways in the world. And then you decide, okay, the way I'm actually going to do this is you're going to go to Seth and say, hey, listen, I want to do this with you. And so...
Who's behind you? I want to know who's behind you.
That's my wife who just snuck by.
Hey.
Hey. So, See, this is how professional we are here at.
I don't care. Everyone else is wondering too, so right. It turns out,
It's like, hello. So you go and you're like, okay, I could, I've got clout, I've had success in the field. I'm gonna make a book out of this. I want to go and really push the envelope and do something different, and you end up going with Seth and the Domino Project. And it's not only that, but it's also you end up going straight digital, right? This book isn't coming out; it's all ebook, right?
Right. Yeah. So the only thing that really makes it a book is the fact that it's with Amazon, which somehow it's a Kindle book instead of, let's say, an ebook, for example, like a PDF.
Right. So why that decision?
Well, I mean, first of all, without Godin, this idea may never have happened. So the early, because I mean, I really have been exploring this idea even on the blog or just like personally for a really long time. Yeah. I come from, an environment of piercing and body modification where people handle and deal with pain and I mean, a number of different ways. And so I've been exploring this maybe for like a decade or more. Mm-hmm. But it took Seth to unearth it, because without that, and I owe him like a huge debt of gratitude. They say that about F. Scott Fitzgerald and a few other, I'm not calling myself a great writer, but great writers from that era in the 1920s, that they had this amazing editor whose name escapes me at the moment, and who really who allowed the work to escape and to really be built. Mm-hmm. And what Godin did is he would not. He was like, no. He's like, this is not good enough. I got an email from him once that said, Julien, this work is. It's good and you should be proud, but do you want to be proud, or do you want to be in awe of the work you have created? And I was like, I don't know how to be in awe of the work I create. I don't know if I can make something that good, but he was always demanding more. And the result of that is that I started, I think I died a little bit and gave a little part of my soul into this text. And I've never made anything like this in my life. And so I hope that anybody that ends up downloading it feels that and learns a thing or two. Because I know just the process of creation and having it, almost give birth to the thing, that I learned a lot myself.
Yeah. So were there times along this journey where you found yourself flinching?
Did I what?
Where you found yourself in the flinch?
Yeah, over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, no, I want to stop. No, I want to stop. No, you feel the psychological wall, and going, no, this is good enough. I come from, I didn't have to work that hard on some things. And as I did this, I was also learning from Martin Birkin, who's a really famous personal trainer who takes care of sometimes celebrities when they're preparing for roles where they need a super six-pack or something like this. And so he's in Sweden, but he's sending me emails every little while, and he's going, Julien, stop being a fucking wuss. You disgust me. Work harder. All these things. I'm like, So, but he's amazing, by the way. And there's very few people that will give you the unpolished truth. And I thought, if I make this thing free, and if I say what I really think, and some people have read it and have been deeply offended by this book, mm-hmm. and I realized that the unvarnished truth, or as close as possible to it, can only no one that personally, and no one that anyone knows can really give them that truth, because they always have that filter of we're friends.
Right.
I go, you know what? I don't know you, so I can tell you the things that you maybe really need to hear. And for some people, they may not need to hear it. And for some people, it may be inappropriate, and I will get hate mail. But I'm comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's hopefully more people that will push the envelope in that way now that they can maybe find a way to do so through the web or something.
So then, what do you hope this book that, it sounds to me like it operated on two levels. One is for you, it was the thing that you couldn't not do at the time. It had to get out. And it sounds like you pushed yourself harder than you've ever pushed yourself, at least on the writing side of things, to make it get out in a way which was not just good, but was really, kick-ass. That was as close to being able to leave you in awe as humanly possible. So that's what it's doing for you. What's your hope about what it will do in the world for other people?
It's a strange thing, because I'm simultaneously, like you and Leo and Chris Gilbo and many, many other people, Corbett Barr, other people like that are all sort of bloggers or whatever content creators that are really quite optimistic about humanity in general. Like we believe, I think you and I both, Jonathan, can really agree that we have a lot of faith in the average human being, even if we don't know who they are and we don't know what their challenges are. Yeah. Like I have a really big difficulty giving up on anyone. No, it doesn't matter to me how often they've failed. I can't help but continuously have faith in them. So I know like that it is a big endeavor, but you know, and any single person that can be changed by it, I hope that they are. I don't think that there's a business model around this. I don't because I mean essentially you're exposing people's vulnerabilities and blind spots to them, and that doesn't make them happy, although it can be useful. I'm not charging for it. I don't care about any of it. I only care about the idea, and I want the idea to spread. So we try to make it, you know, I mean, Seth is kind of like, that's what he does. He publishes ebooks that just go crazy. So working with him and trying to find the best way to do that has been a very interesting process. And I hope that it reaches people. And even if I'm not even associated with it, if they don't remember my name, then I am happy that they've read it and looked at it and that it may have influenced them in some way.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm actually, you know, like, since in a way, like part of this, you know, like was came out of a conversation that we had earlier this year. I'm actually really excited to check it out. Like we've been talking about it. I've heard you share pieces of, you know, what's going into it and your, you know, pieces of the process. So I can't wait to actually download my free copy and check the whole thing out. Also,
for sure.
So this is up and out, and people can go on Amazon, and it's free, and they can download it to their Kindle or whatever else they want to read it on, stuff like that, right?
You can download it even if you don't have a Kindle, even if you have an iPhone, or even not. You can download it and watch it. You could read it in your browser. It is literally impossible not to be able to access it if you have an Amazon.com account, which everybody does. So if you want to download it for iPhone, if you want to download it for Kindle, whatever format it is you want to be able to read it in, you can, and it'll be available on the 7th of December. It's actually been indexed by Google, but the page will be public then. So you could just click, it'll get downloaded, and you can read it at your leisure. And I hope that if it has an impact on you, you'll send me an email.
Awesome. Either way, good, bad, ugly, happy, sad.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's, you know, this whole thing has been so interesting, this whole process of being in like, I'm sure you feel the same way with your book, like, you just feel like you've been in a cave for so long, and now I'm talking about it, and it's very weird to be able to talk about it and know that it'll be out on the internet, because I literally have never said the word the Flinch, like publicly before. This is the first time that I actually say things out loud, and so it'll be interesting to see what the response is.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. You want to talk a little bit about publishing before we head out, or you want?
That would be really good. Let's do that for sure.
Yeah, because I know you and I, we've had some really interesting experiences, and you know, this is like to say it's a fast moving train right now is like the understatement of the year. You know, publishing is changing at breakneck speed. So you know, your first book was the one with Brogan was Wiley, right? Yeah,
the first book was with Wiley. We did ebooks. Me and Chris did ebooks before that, but the first book that we ever got published that was in a bookstore was with them.
Right. So you guys do ebooks. Then you do hardcover with Wiley, becomes a New York Times bestseller. Now you do the Flinch with Seth, and then the one after this is another collaboration with Chris, but with Portfolio, which is the publisher that, you know, did Uncertainty with me. What's going on there?
You know, my heart goes out to the internet. I think it's probably a lot of the people, like, you know, a friend of mine, Hugh McGuire, he actually just did an interview, maybe published 2 days ago, with Brogan, but he's here in Montreal, and him and I have known each other for a long time. He said this amazing thing one time, and he's been sort of talking about that for years. He says the transition or the distinction between books and the internet is transitory, and in 5 years it will not exist. So the books and the internet are actually the same thing, and the only real distinction is that one of them has the ability to copy paste, and one of them has hyperlinks, and the other one does not. So when that barrier gets broken down, then everything changes. And so this is like a sort of experiment in publishing, the same way that Seth himself was experimenting with Domino, and just says, like, what can happen when you give people almost like an irresistible offer. You go, this is not long. It's not a long book. It's super short. The idea is very simple and concrete. It's free. And you can share it in an extremely easy way. Like almost every piece of friction has been removed from the equation. And then you ask yourself, like, well, what can I really do? What will really happen to an idea if you remove all of the barriers?
Okay, so all that I get. I totally understand this. That evolution, through Seth, I get. Then why are you going back to portfolio and adding all the friction back into the process?
Yeah, you're totally right in a sense. It's because that barrier has never truly been broken down. And I know, you know what, I really have a feeling that within, not even our lifetime, but within, maybe even a decade, all of it will be transformed. Amazon, I think we've talked about this, you and I, in the past, like, are sitting on the largest amount of data about books and history, and they have the ability. Yeah, it's nuts. You don't even think about this, but Amazon knows when someone doesn't finish a book. They know what parts they highlight. They know where they usually stop and get bored, right? All of this can be gathered. Whether or not all of it is being gathered, who knows? But they definitely know when a book isn't finished. They know when people don't decide not to finish a book for 6 months, and maybe they're getting close to figuring out why. And on the other hand, you have the rest of the publishers, and they don't know any of that. So, but in the meantime, there's this gap, and it's a credibility gap. And so you do a book with Wiley, which is a publisher, but it's a publisher that most internet people could get a deal with, or many internet people could get a deal with. Go to portfolio, and then from that point on, it's almost like Tim Ferriss. And he goes, well, whatever, I think it was Crown, his usual thing that he did. And then he's like, where do I go from here? The only way you can go is directly to the relationship to Amazon, where they know everything about the customer, and they can take advantage of that relationship. So, I mean, that's the way that it's going, but the credibility gap needs to be breached for many of the people on the internet, because they're just bloggers otherwise. They're not authors, and that means something. It shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I agree. It's obviously I'm still traditionally published, and as I look forward to my next book, I had some thinking to do around the idea and what I want to do moving forward and how I want to handle it, especially because I want to write on a variety of different topics. But yeah, we're in this really interesting window right now where it's like we're in the hallway. And I don't think it's going to be 10 years. I think it's going to be 3 years, 5 years before a lot of this stuff is resolved. And it's pretty clear which doorway is the intelligent doorway to walk through. But right now, it's not even a matter of like choosing the doorway. It's a matter of deciding whether you want to build the door or not. It's because we're in this part where we're only choosing the directions. We're helping build whatever the next direction is. So it's interesting. It's confusing. It's opportunistic. It's scary as hell, but it's exciting as hell. And I mean, we've talked about it. It's an awesome time to be an author if you're willing to actually own the fact that disruption is opportunity.
Now, but the thing is I mean, and everyone that's either listening to this interview or that is a public or is an author or something like that, or like to become one, they are looking for an edge. And the real secret, the thing that's weird, is that you don't ever get an edge by doing what the other guy does. And what the other guy is doing right now is trying to get a traditional book deal.
Right.
They are trying to do something that will give them the credibility. I just had a conversation about it last night with a friend that somebody put me in contact with. How do you get a deal? And I'm sure you've had the similar conversation with like 100 people. So, but you have to do something that's uncool. And uncool in the cultural sense means either, passé, or it means up and coming. And if you can do up and coming before other people are comfortable with it, and you can be comfortable with it, then in fact you will be ahead of the curve, and you'll be in a good position when other people start to consider it to be a thing. And then Jonathan will be, it's Jonathan Fields. He was doing it before anybody thought it was a big deal. And no.
Yeah, no, it is. It's it's, and sometimes you don't know whether you're gonna, whether you're just absolutely insane or whether you're, like just pushing the envelope in a way where it's gonna create a whole new thing. But that's the place that you need to be on it. It's one of my big explorations right now is, so I have an opportunity to be on the side, probably be on the side and stay successful of the way it's traditionally been done, and also be on the side of disruption and be successful on that side. And it's pretty clear what the future is, but that future is not now. The future is, it's going to take a little while to unfold. So like in this window where it's unfolding, it's interesting because it's not, you know, part of the conversation in my head is, which side do I want to be on until the path becomes so clear that I know, you know, like where I know where I want to be alive. Like right now, I know what's going to happen in a couple of years, 5 years from now. I know where I'm going to be. But right now is this really interesting time where it's just a constant rebalancing of intuition and data.
Yeah, it is, and at the same time, I feel like it is. You have to play, and I think this is always the case with pretty much anything in any disruptive circumstances. You have to play both sides against each other. So what you're doing is you're using the freeness, the spreadableness of the internet, and using that and saying, look, I have this leverage over here, and you go to the guys that need that leverage, to which platform is important, like publishers, and then you go, well, look, I have this really important thing with these guys. Come over here and I'll tell you about it. And then once you get that, then you go, oh, okay, now I'm going to use this thing that they have that the internet guys don't have, and then you're going to push it over again. So it's like over and over again, just playing the game. And it's a hype game, but it's the game that needs to be played for people to care.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that, you know, it's no surprise, you know, by the time people see this, you know, we're recording this a week before the book comes out, but this will go up when the book comes out. That you know, will be all over the internet. That Seth has basically decided to suspend a lot of what's happening with the Domino Project moving forward, and you know, you kind of like you're left in this place where you're really trying to explore. Okay, you know, I don't know what he's doing next, but clearly he's a guy who's got a lot of things. But what's fascinating to me is that in the post that he wrote this week, which is a really big, meaty, bullet-pointed, long post, especially for Seth. He just generally doesn't write stuff like that. You know, and he basically said, this is what I've learned, and this is what's really important moving forward if you want to be an author or publisher. And one of the key things was really what's old is new again, which is it's all about the list. You know, is that, you know, fundamentally, if you're an author, and if you want to be a publisher moving forward, you're complete putz if you don't spend the vast majority of your time, money, and energy building a really big permission asset. And this isn't new. It's not new. Seth was one of the earliest guys out there saying it. Now a ton of people are saying it, but those within publishing, there's a lot of dynamic, and there's a lot of chicken games going on right now between publishers and distributors and booksellers, which are compelling people not to build their own lists because, you know, well, if you go direct to consumer, then the distributors and the resellers don't want to carry you because, you know, you're subverting them. And so there's a lot of back and forth here. But, you know, that will have to change because the direction of the industry is going in one way. And you know, it's what's fascinating is that I think, you know, what you were just talking about, you and I can build our own, you know, permission assets. We can build our lists or communities and access them. But the publishers have always said no because they've resisted. You know, they're like, we can't do that because we're going to cut off our brick and mortar distribution. And there will come a time where the chicken game has to end. And where basically what Seth is saying, that publishers need to start building their own topic-specific lists. That will have to happen if you want to survive. I cannot imagine surviving without that happening. And I can't imagine traditional publishing being able to keep attracting the quality of talent that they want to be able to sign and build their businesses around if they don't step up and say, one of our value propositions, which we've never had before, but it's going to be super appealing to a lot of authors who just want to shut up and write, is that you can shut up and write because we're going to spend a ton of time, money, and energy building the list so that when you give us the book, we get to hit a button and we've got 5 million people who raise their hand and say, hell yes.
Yeah, you know, it's almost like, you know, there should be collaborative. We can learn a lot from the internet marketing guys, eh? The sleazeballs that are pitching constantly pitching. They pitch you in person. It's amazing to go to one of these conferences where it's all about that. And they're at the end of their event, they're like, well, and then I'm going to teach you, and then like the first 10 people to sign up in the back of the room will get the product for $9.99.99. You know, as opposed to $14.99.99. So, but we can learn from those guys without being dirtbags. And to be fair, their methods are extremely effective. So I understand why they do them. But we can learn how to do that. What they do is they always share around. They go, oh, you know, we're going to help this guy do this amazing thing. okay, now he had his super launch day, and now next week, but wait, this other product is even more revolutionary, and now everyone is pitching together towards making this thing happen. And I think we're largely collaborative, but maybe we could be more collaborative. Maybe we could be building a list in a way. We're happy to have Amazon have the list, and we're happy to have them help us. But again, we're dependent on someone else having it. So us building our own thing is really what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think, like, so now Amazon has their own, publishing wing. It started out in Seattle, then Seth had this project with them, but now they're building their own New York-based, almost like they're a traditional publisher in-house with a whole bunch of advantages. And they've got that value proposition. If they want to go out and sign a huge name author that's with a big house, they can say, okay, you're getting, X advance there, but we're going to give you X advance. And then when the book comes out, we're sitting on a list of a couple 100 million emails of people. And we know that, 18.652 million of those people have bought these 12 books that are really similar to yours. And, and this series of books. And when your book comes out, we're going to hit a button and send a really compelling email to those people. Does that sound appealing to you, Mr. Author?
Yeah.
What a massive value proposition that is. Like, how can you compete with that if you're not building your own database?
From the purpose of from the perspective. Sorry, I'm thinking in French as I'm talking to you. From the perspective of someone who is putting out something free on Kindle's sort of network or what have you. And simultaneously, someone who's Canadian, by the way, I get to live in the past and the future because almost no books are available in Canada. So I have to, if someone's from Amazon is listening to this, do not shut down my account. But I had an ex-girlfriend who was American, so I have an American address. So I put my American address in my Amazon.com account. Now it's like, you're an American. And I go, great. So then I can download all these Kindle books. And that allows me to kind of live in the future, which is really the present for you, right?
Yeah.
And what you think, again, going back to what's uncool and cool, if you can publish something that is for free and get a fair amount of attention to it in a certain niche, whatever niche that ends up being, then it ends up being associated in Amazon's account with many, many, many different books. Right. People who have bought this have also bought this, and have also bought the Flinch, really, or whatever, Right. Also, but if it's free, then who knows if they'll promote it. Like then it really becomes into, like, you start thinking about who the different people are and what they have to gain from the equation every single time. So you have to make sure that you're always offering something different that they don't already have. So with a publisher, it was a platform. Now Amazon has the platform. They need the content. So how do you become the content, et cetera? Yeah. Always staying a step ahead.
Yeah, no, and it's like we've been kind of saying, it's a really interesting time because nobody knows exactly where this is going or how it's going to play out. But being in the mix while it's all playing out, is if you're open to dancing for a while, it's a pretty cool place to be.
Mm-hmm, totally, it is an interesting time to be an author, and the best part about that is that everybody gets to be an author now. Yeah. So it becomes this open playing field. The network being able to connect necessarily to a certain publisher doesn't matter anymore. Oh, do you know a good agent? Fuck that. Now it's like, now the content will begin to hopefully truly stand for itself. So at that point, it becomes who can create and make the best ideas and so on. So actually, that's the Bookwood portfolio. That's what we're talking about with Chris. Right. And that'll be out maybe in June or whatever of next year. But that's what it's really about. What happens when everyone has access to everything and nobody cares anymore?
Right. And that's actually a really important point. It's probably a good thing for us to sort of wrap up the conversation with is that, we're talking about publishing model changes and how valuable the list is and access and permission assets and stuff. But fundamentally, none of this stuff matters if you write crappy books.
Right.
It's the single biggest, people are asking me all the time, how do I get a deal? How do I sell a lot of books? How do I do this? I'm like, I can help you tactically with a lot of things. I can help you build a platform. I can help you develop relationships. And we can set up a really good launch campaign. But fundamentally, none of that is going to matter if you're not writing something which is really compelling. And I think, one of the, you're going to see, I think, a lot of people out there testing a lot of stuff. And there's going to be a huge rush to say, okay, it's me. I'm raising my hand. I'm an author now. And then I think a lot of that, I think the pendulum is going to swing fairly violently back the other way when a lot of those people say, well, why isn't everybody anointing me an author and, signing me up and for TV and buying everything that I'm saying? not realizing that because you have the ability to say something doesn't mean that you have something to say, and the craft that it often takes years to develop to say in a way which is compelling enough to open people's minds and hearts. So I think the people that are truly devoted to not just building strong, powerful marketing machines around them, but also continuing to go deeper and develop the craft are the ones that are really going to be in the power positions moving forward.
Totally. I call that well, I don't know that I call it anyway. It's like if they're willing to bleed and sweat and cry for the content that they're creating, then they will have done more than the next guy, because it's easy to be a blogger and write a top 10 list or something like that. But to make something which other people are not willing to make, taking risks, and again, I feel like I'm talking out of, it's like Seth Godin's words coming out of my mouth. But it's like if they're willing to take a bigger risk than the other guy, then they will succeed because they will have made something exceptional. And if they don't, and they just sort of follow whatever the trend is, then they'll end up being set up alongside all those guys and be just kind of a Me Too type of dude.
Yeah, and there are going to be a whole lot more Me Too's out there in the very near future. There already are. All right, this is totally awesome. One more time, what's the name and where can people find it?
You can go to theflinch.com, theflinch.com, and you can download it. It'll connect you to Amazon, or you can read about it. That'll be kind of a sort of destination where everything that is, there's some how-to in the book as well, like some exercises type Fight Club things. And when you go to the site, you can either download the book or you can sort of go further with other stuff that didn't make it into the book because it had to be under a certain number of words to be considered a manifesto for Domino.
Got it. Very cool, man. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to read it, and I'm sure it's going to totally rock.
I'm excited too. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem.